this. This is 20 people. This is 20 people standing against what is coming. When fascism came to happen, 40 people against hundreds. Where are you? When fascism came to happen, 40 people against hundreds. Where are you?
Good evening, guys and gals. Welcome back to another episode of House of Faust. It's good to be back, everybody. It's been a while. But we have a splendid panel for you all this evening, and we're going over the lovely discussion of religion that does nothing but unify the entire right wing. So let's hop right into it. Got a special panel for you all this evening, filled with a variety of guests that some of you may know and love. First off, we have Daniel from Activist News. He is a political activist, content creator, and Aussie shit poster. His interests happen to be politics, theology, IT, and history. Daniel, welcome aboard. Thanks for coming on.
Hey, thanks guys. Thanks for having me on. First time on the show, looking forward to it, and hopefully it's a lively and respectful discussion, and hopefully people take some key points away and understand the other side a little bit better.
I'm sure it's going to be a fun time. We always do have one on House of Faust. And up next we got Radical Greek Hyperborean. Goes by Radical Greek, excuse me. He's got a bachelor degree in business. He's got an associate's in music. And he's a Greek Orthodox since birth. His interests include world history and culture, as well as studying different cultures and beliefs. Radical, thanks for joining us.
Hey, nice to be here. First time on as well.
Good to have you.
Guys are great.
And following up with him, we have, you guys know him, you'll love him, my man Grizzly Saxon. Thanks again for playing a role in the conversation this evening. I want to mention his interests are in Celtic and Northern European history. He was raised with a thorough grounding by his parents in ancestral history and grounding. He was given books on the Celtic mythology and Norse mythology at a young age and has taken an interest in it and embraced the folkish work since he was young. He's also got a marketing profession. And
yes.
Yeah. So Grizz, yeah, it's nice to have you on the other side of the spectrum this evening. Don't think I'm not going to pull any punches and not give you any wedgies.
It's totally cool. Thanks for having me on as a guest this time. I'm excited.
Well, you're always welcome on. But last but not least, we have Miss Carolyn Emerick. Am I saying that correctly?
Yes, you are. Thank you for having me.
Of course, yeah. She has a background in studying European history and culture at the college level, but also in her purse time for the majority of her life. And she's also a researcher and historian who publishes 2 history culture magazines focused on European culture. And I want to thank you for spending your time preserving the heritage that and the work that you do. So, Caroline, welcome aboard. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you very much for having me here tonight.
Excellent, excellent. And I'm joined by, you know him, you love him, Will Avar, co-host this evening. Thanks for providing me backup. It's needed.
Evening. Good to be here.
So yeah, before we get started, I do want to provide a quick shout-out, if you will, if that's appropriate, to a friend of ours, goes by the name of Sven. He's a great guy, and he was supposed to be on this evening, but his family's having some health issues regarding his father-in-law. So no matter what faith you hold dear to your heart, I do believe it's important for us all to keep fine individuals like Sven, his family, and his father-in-law in our hearts and prayers, no matter who your God or faith is. And let's just, keep them in our hearts, guys. We got to watch out for each other. But that being said, topic this evening: which religion is better, and why is Christianity and paganism? Well, which one's better than the other? No, not really. We're not going with that subject. It's more along the lines of which one, if one, is beneficial to Europeans in the sense of identity. but not which one's better per se. What benefits do they provide? What drawbacks are there? And what is the personal relationship between the faiths and the panel this evening? So guys, did any of y'all have any opening statements you want to make? Or we have your background, you all seem well grounded in your beliefs, you're not just some LARPers who just got on the bandwagon and just enjoy shit posting, though. Activist, I'm going to keep an eye on you.
Well, I'm happy to jump in first just to just for a bit of history, I guess, more than anything. Obviously, in these types of movements, there is a lot of division, and it's my hopes that division isn't sowed, but overcome. Not in the sense that, you know, we're going to force each other to believe what the other people are going to believe. Like, I'm sure people on the panel are not going to have their minds changed by what I say and vice versa. I think the key here is understanding more than anything. And I remind people that more than once in the past, pagans and Christians have actually teamed up to defeat Mohammedans. So I'll just chuck that out there. But in terms of Christianity, I just want to say that, and I can't speak for everyone who's a Christian, but I dare say I probably speak for Greek a little bit here too when I say this, that I don't identify myself to be born again, because I believe the traditions and the doctrines of the church today, the New Age church as I like to call it, has been watered down to the point where there's almost nothing to be garnered from it. That you can't really receive anything from it. I do believe that most of the newborn, born-again Christian-type churches that are around today are very watered down in their approach. They're very soft, and a lot of this is due to political correctness, Judaizing, and more often than not, I actually believe that this form of watered-down, weak Christianity tends to lead people towards atheism more than anything. So I just want to make it clear that that is not what I represent. I represent a more traditional form of Catholicism more than anything, but I identify myself to be non-denominational. So I just wanted to chuck that out there, that we're probably all on the same page when it comes to the effectiveness of the born-again Christian church, which is not very good.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you on that.
Now, just a quick breakdown for anybody coming in late. Who do we have arguing on the side of Christianity, and who is on the side of paganism? For the discussion, at least.
Well, I'll be here to, back my side of the argument, which is Christianity, or the biblical doctrine, the doctrine found in the New Testament.
Wonderful. So it's you and Greek.
Yeah, me.
Versus.
Yeah.
Not necessarily versus. Discussing with Caroline and Grizz this evening. So I just wanted to make sure that was clarified amongst everybody. And these aren't necessarily teams, but it's more of a group think, challenge.
All right. So can I respond to what was just said from the pagan perspective?
Please have the floor.
So, well, first of all, I would open by saying that it is not anywhere in the indigenous European worldview to say that the meek will inherit the kingdom in any way, shape, or form, nor is it a directive of ours to turn the other cheek. So I would say that if you look straight into the Bible, into the New Testament itself, you see this assertion of tail between your legs, and it's a directive to be meekness. However, if you look to the Old Testament, what you find is that every group of people on the planet, they all have their own mytho-history, and mytho-history for all human beings involves the origin myths, and also the sort of life and times of the tribes, as well as the tribal codes and laws, as well as other things like poetry and great songs. And so these are the things that you find in the Old Testament, which are the sacred scriptures of the Hebrews, or the life and times of the Hebrews, as it were. Now, the one God of the Old Testament, Yahweh, was actually originated in Canaanite polytheism. And the Hebrews themselves, most biblical scholars, even Jewish biblical scholars, will say that Hebrews originally were pagan Canaanites who simply had an ideological shift and separated from their neighbors. Now, it's outlined in the Old Testament that the Hebrews, when they separated from the Canaanites, they actually engaged in genocide campaigns wherein they targeted, these are stories like Joshua and the Battle of Jericho, for example, where entire cities are just completely annihilated in the name of the one God Yahweh. Yahweh was originally in the Canaanite pagan polytheistic pantheon. In fact, he was the son of El. And you can look into this. It's actually documented in the Bible, because what happened was, among the Hebrews, the god El was first elevated, but then Yahweh became the, quote, jealous God, and so he was elevated while El was demoted. Now, the word El came to mean God in the Hebrew scriptures, which is why you have terms like El Shaddai or Elohim, because El came to mean God, but it was originally a pronoun. So what you have is that in the Old Testament, you have an example of the life and times of these tribal people. But the important thing to note is that Europeans have this too. We have our own origin myths. We have our own life and times of the wandering European tribes that nobody knows about. We have our own great songs, and we have our own tribal codes. So when we as a people are struggling for our very identity against people who want to wipe us off the face of the planet, it does us very little good to actually be fetishizing the life and times of another tribe originating on another continent that has zero mytho-linguistic ties to the European experience, or it's not even in our same language group. They're not the same ethnicity as us. It's just when we are fighting for our very survival, this has to be called into question. And I would also say that the notion that the Christian church is different today and it's weak today, but it used to be pro-European, is absolutely preposterous, because the Christians engaged in genocidal campaigns exactly as is outlined in the Old Testament and exactly as is outlined by the Islamists are doing today. It's simply that the elites roll out a new ideology when the old one is no longer working, and we can go into that in more detail as the conversation continues.
Sure. Can I just respond to some of that?
Yeah, I'm just surprised that was more intense than the Kavanaugh hearing today. But but before we get a response back and forth, I want everybody to have a little in. So started off with you. Sorry, I'm drawing a activist. You know, Daniel.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
But before that, if you could hold off, I just want to get a quick intro from Greek and then one from Grizzly as well, just from their stances on the issue.
What you just said about the ancient religion being not of European descent.
Well, no, I meant like in regards to paganism and Christianity for the movement overall.
Okay, as far as paganism and Christianity, it's I got to think of something like, okay, so see, orthodoxy, it's an intellectual idea. It's never been like Catholicism. So it's very hard to describe. Even old priests will say they don't know, like when you ask them a question. And it's more of a mystical school. So we believe in mysteries, and everything's a mystery, and it combines to lead to our salvation, and everything's traced back to Jesus Christ. So everything can be explained with Jesus Christ. So, and as far as paganism goes, it is a different school of thought, because it predates Christianity, obviously, but it doesn't mean you can't just throw away 20 centuries of Christian doctrine for paganism that we don't know as much about. We are still discovering paganism. You know what I mean? It's still new to people, but people understand Jesus Christ. So it's easier to bring people to Jesus than it is to make them pagan, so to speak.
Your hang-up is on the rediscovery of paganism, if you will. For lack of better words.
It's been rediscovered and people are getting into it. That's fine. But Christianity's been around for 20 centuries, and people are still discovering that as well.
Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. All right.
Right. You can't just get rid of it.
Excellent. Well, yeah, no, look forward to getting your input. And my man Grizz, what you got?
Yeah, just to piggyback a little bit off of Carolyn, I do believe that paganism out of Europe has first and foremost inherently within itself a foundational element of the 14 words. A lot of people talk about the 14 words, an existence of our people and a future for white children. Well, we ancestor worshipped. It was our religions and our customs and our traditions that have kept and sustained our people throughout early history and throughout even partially modern history. And what she said about certain religions out of the Abrahamic sect kind of just going through and eradicating a lot of portions of our history. They used to tear down pagan symbols. They used to tear down pagan worship sites. They used to persecute pagans, European people. And with that said, I can't see how Christianity right now or in the past has ever been and will ever be for European people.
Very well put. All right. Well, I know Greek had a point he wanted to make with Carolyn's perspective, so maybe we can get a little rebuttal action going, and then it'll just take off from there.
About the what I said before about it not being from Europe, but if you look at the Bible, all the apostles went to Greece and brought it to Greece, and this was after Christ died. Hundreds of years later, it was all a verbal history. It was an oral history, sorry, and then they wrote it down. But it was traditionally passed on by word of mouth, and it spread throughout Europe. In Europe, I mean, the place that it had traditionally gone down was, in fact, Roman. It was a Roman place. It was European in its heart. Maybe not by the soil, but the people there were Roman. They were Greco-Roman people. So to say that Christianity is not European is just, that's silly, because the first Bible is written in Greek, transferred from the ancient Hebrew language, I guess Aramaic, which I don't even know what the other language is. But it was Latin and Greek that it was converted to. Now, what those people did with it was sacrilegious, what they did with it, when they went and attacked people and killed people. I don't agree with that in Christianity, but that's just how it is. It's like any other religion that wants to conquer the world at the time. Islam, one in particular, after Christianity, they wanted to destroy everything. So we've been persecuted as well. I mean, we didn't and pagans didn't go out without a fight. There was a lot of them that resisted, a lot of them converted, a lot of them fought back and killed many of us. But that's how it is. That's history.
So before we move on, and believe me, I don't want to hog the discussion this evening, but I'm interested in Grizzly and Carolyn's perspectives. Do y'all have a large problem with Christianity due to its... Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, I just wanted to respond to the points that were made, though, real quick, because
Sure.
It's important. So, first of all, the fact that it did start in the Roman Empire, but Saul of Tarsus was a Jew. He was strictly in Judaism. And now I have actually studied biblical history, and I have read many biblical scholars, so you can go look this up and verify it. But Saul of Tarsus, the Jew, was actually rejected by the immediate followers of Christ. Now, you see, Saul of Tarsus never met Jesus, ever. And so the followers who actually did follow Jesus, his own brother James, who was with him throughout his entire ministry, now they were still active. Another thing that Christians neglect to do is to put this into perspective, because this whole thing happened in the lead up to the Jewish revolt, and the razing of Jerusalem was somewhere 67 AD, give or take a couple of years. You can look that up and you'll find it's true. So this was all in the context of tensions between the Jews and the Romans. And so this just goes right out the window when people are looking at this in the modern world. Now, James, the brother of Jesus, absolutely wanted nothing to do with Saul, who changed his name to Paul of Tarsus, because, number one, Saul never met Jesus. Number two, Saul started preaching all these things that were not taught by Jesus ever. Now, the New Testament is almost predominantly Paul. It should actually be called Paulianity, because there's very little to do with Jesus and a lot to do with Paul. Paul, who actually, his argument with the original followers of Jesus is actually outlined in the New Testament, where they really really butted heads, and they finally agreed with him because basically the guy wouldn't shut up. So that's number one. Number two.
I know someone like that, actually. But yeah, carry on.
Oh, is that a jab at me?
No. I'm sincere. I personally know someone just like that. So,
well, I mean,
accurate.
there's a lot that he said here that really bears addressing, because these are things that Christians repeat all the time, and this is honestly like the human nature to just repeat things without looking into it. So it is important to address these things. Now, the Bible was not written in Greek. The Bible, the Jewish Bible, was written in Hebrew. The New Testament was written in Greek. But this is very crucial. Christians don't know this either. The very first translation into a Germanic language was the Gothic Bible. You can go look this up, by Wolfilas, or sometimes called Ulfias, who was a Gothic guy who translated it into into Old Gothic in order to evangelize the Germans. Now, what this guy did, he was a sly little fellow, because when they were evangelizing the Germanic people, they started writing these epic poems, basically lying about Jesus, misrepresenting Jesus as a warrior, which obviously, he was not a warrior. But furthermore, what they did is they carefully chose words from Germanic paganism, from our own spirituality, that they put in the New Testament, words that we still have today that Christians don't even understand. So, for example, when in the Greek, they refer to Jesus as something like Kyriakos, which I believe means something like teacher. He was called teacher by his followers. Now, the word Lord is a Germanic language Lord, and you can go to etymology online right now and look for the origin of the word Lord, and you'll find that it actually has agrarian fertility meaning. And it is actually, and anybody who knows Germanic paganism knows that the god Freyr, his title was Lord, and Freya was lady. So by calling Jesus Lord, depicting him as a warrior, that was one way that they sort of changed Christianity and also tricked Europeans. But the very word God itself is also of Germanic origin. I explained the etymology of the Hebrew word for God, which is El. So there's a very real sense that when Christians kneel and they pray to the Lord, I don't know any Christian who prays to Yahweh. Every Christian that I know says, Dear God, Germanic pagan word, Dear Lord, Germanic pagan word. Or what else do they say? They say Heavenly Father. Well, guess what that comes from? Deus Pater is directly from the Proto-Indo-European paganism, and that's actually where you get Jupiter, and it's even cognate for Zeus, but Jupiter breaks down to Deus Pater. So, there's that, and I really did quickly also want to address the 2,000 years thing, because that's a falsehood. Even the Roman Empire hasn't been... Every time you hear somebody say, hey, we've been Christian for 2,000 years, it's very important to confront this, because it's a blatant lie. Not even the Roman Empire has been Christian for 2,000 years. They've only been Christian for about 1,600 years. But more than that, most of us in America and most of us that we're connected to in Europe are from Northern European culture. And Northern European cultures have been barely Christian for 1,000 years. And to top that off, not only was Christianity heavily paganized, but there's ample evidence from the witch trial eras to show an active shamanic religion, paganistic religion was active into the 1600s. And what you find when you compare that with folklore and tales that were still being told into the 1900s, you find that these beliefs and practices of the common people of Europe lived on all the way through for these 2,000 years. So this idea that paganism is just being revived today is false, because remember, the elites use smoke and mirrors, and they are lying to us about our history now. And if you are naive and you are a fool if you think they have not been lying to us about our own history for decades to centuries before this.
All right, I've got a lot. I've been taking notes.
Let me just say one thing. The Orthodox believe in the Old Testament. Yes, that's Jewish. But at the same time, we only took the first, I think, 5 or 6 books out of it. And then we started the New Testament. And that's when we took off our Christianity from there. But there's centuries before Christianity became popular that's what I mean by the 20 centuries. That's what I meant. It's been around for that long. Because it's AC to BC.
Jump in next.
Yeah, go ahead, activist. Sorry, I just had to say that.
No, it's because of my short memory, I actually had to take some notes, because there's a lot to unpack. There's a lot that there's a lot that Carolyn said. First of all, she claims to have some sort of education in biblical studies, but I'm not sure how much attention she's actually paid, because, she said something about, Christian genocide in Old Testament times. Well, first of all, there was no such thing as Christians in Old Testament times. Second of all, when you're talking about the Old Testament, you need to understand that this is an old covenant, a dead covenant that was done away with. It was completely done away with, and the proof of that was in 70 AD when the temple was destroyed. Not one stone was left upon another. That is what the Jews themselves believe. That is what they themselves say. You also brought up, what else did you bring up? The first Bible, okay? Now, our final word for doctrine and faith comes from the New Testament. That is our final and full authority. And that is completely written in Greek. Now, the Old Testament is not written in Gothic. It's written in Hebrew and Aramaic. Saying it was written in, saying there's a Gothic Bible and it was the first one, that's actually, well, a lie and a myth that can't be proven. In fact, if you go and find actual manuscripts of the New Testament, you'll find that there's about 4,000 to 5,000 Greek handwritten manuscripts. There are 0 written in Hebrew. There are 0 written in Gothic. Also, this notion about Christianity being a religion with its tail between its legs, I don't know how that can be claimed, because, well, first of all, it's, it succeeded every other religion, mostly through conversion. A lot of the Vikings saw how fearless the Catholics were, and through that alone, saw that, wow, these people have true faith in a God, and decided to convert. And also want to point out that Catholicism is completely native to Europe. Christian identity, the idea of Christianity itself established as a religion, is native to Europe. And you'll actually find that a lot of the apostles and witnesses were actually Greek-speaking native people. A lot of them were Gentiles. So that needs to be pointed out, because there are some serious misconceptions being said here, and I think that needs to be addressed. If you read the New Testament, anyone who's actually studied the New Testament, and I'm not talking about the Schofield Bible, like a King James version, or just any version that's not the Schofield Reference Bible, I don't know how anybody can walk out of that and say that this is a Jewish religion, or that there's any connection to Jews, when the apostles themselves, including some of those who converted and actually used to be Jewish themselves, most of them not, but a lot of them were Greeks. There were some Jewish ones. There were Nazarenes. I don't know. Like, if you go and read the book of Galatians, the book of Romans, Colossians, Titus, I don't know how anybody can walk out of that and say that there is a connection. Like, for me, the biggest myth of Christianity is this one that you hear parroted a lot by Zionists, this idea of Christian Judeo values. Jesus rebuked these people numerous times, said that these people were sons of their father, the devil. And I think that needs to be pointed out. The apostles, who were mostly Greek, all spoke Greek. And this is why the Bible was written in Greek. Thessalonians, think about that. It refers to the city in Greece called Thessalonica. The book of Philippians, where is Philippi? It's a city in Macedonia. This is who the New Testament is addressed to. This is why the foundation and core doctrine of our belief, Christianity, not found in the Old Testament, only found in the New Testament, is in fact native to Europe. Catholicism, 100% native to Europe by European people. And that's a fact. If you go and read the book of John, for an example, John, who also wrote the book of Revelations, you'll see that the original Bibles were taken to the 7 churches of Asia, Asia being Asia Minor, so, Greece back in the days, or what is now today modern-day Greece and Turkey. This is where the original churches were. Jesus himself was a Nazarene, but he grew up in Galilee of the Gentiles, which means he spoke Greek, not just Hebrew. That needs to be pointed out. Peter was also considered the first bishop of Rome, who also spoke Greek. So anybody saying that this is not a European religion, first of all, one, doesn't know what they're talking about. Two, doesn't have any sources or evidence, or they're basing a lot of their opinions and beliefs on Jewish-inspired Wikipedia entries. Or three, they just are not paying attention. I mean, if you go and read the book of...
Wait, before you go on to something, dude, I just want to get into... I know Carolyn really wants to respond to this, but I also want to get some input from Grizzly. He's been very quiet, and then I want to bounce back to Greek. I want to make sure you all get an ample amount of time between yourselves, so...
Yeah, because there was a personal jab that was made at the launch of that, and I've not been personal with anyone, and that was appropriate for the standards that we were told we were going to abide by in this discussion. But first of all, you misrepresented a lot of what I said, because by belittling my biblical knowledge, you said that I said that there were Christians engaging in genocide in the Old Testament, which I did not say. I said that the Hebrew tribes engaged in genocide, and you saw that repeated in the Christian Middle Ages, and you see it again repeated with Islam, number one. Now, also, when you say that Christianity spread by conversion, well, yes, it did. It spread by convert or die. And you can go on the internet and you can look up the Wendish Crusades, the Baltic Crusades, the Saxon Wars, and you can look up the King of Norway, Olaf, who converted his entire people in the year 995 with a bloody convert or die campaign. You can also look up the pagan Jutes from the Isle of Wight in Great Britain, and you will find that the Anglo-Saxons completely slaughtered them. They completely genocided them in a religious war. Okay? Now, you also brought up the Gothic Bible, and you seem to laugh because you misunderstood what I said. I said that the first time that the Bible was ever translated into a Germanic language, maybe you don't understand that we're speaking a Germanic language right now, and you mentioned the King James Bible. I guess you don't know that the King James Bible is in a Germanic language, so it's really important to look to the first time that it was ever put into a Germanic language, because this set the precedent for the words that we're still using in English today that are Germanic in origin. So that clearly went right over your head, because we're not speaking Hebrew or Aramaic or Greek. We are speaking a Germanic language right now, so it's a key point that they manipulated and twisted the language to actually use language from our own pagan paradigm in order to pull us in. So I would also urge everybody to go on the internet and Google Ethiopia was the first officially Christian officially Christian nation, because how can we say that it originated in Europe when the first Christian nation was Ethiopia? Next.
Well, just to piggyback off that, I do consider Christianity, just like many other faiths that originated from that area of the world, to be majority destructive to other peoples and ethnicities that they spread into. Going northward with the Northern Crusades, converting women from pagan families, basically splitting families apart, using pagan symbology, using pagan words, using pagan tradition and beliefs in the religion as it spreads, so that they would convert more people or kill them. All these things have been detrimental to our people, and I do not think. I think Carolyn's exactly right. It is not European, nor will it ever be.
Well, that's just. I mean, you're talking nonsense, and I don't mean to be rude, but to say that it's not a European religion, when in fact it is. I just don't know how you can look past that. And
real quick, I got to interject. I think a lot of it comes down to interpretation of what is European religion. I think you're making the point that it was adopted and incorporated into European culture, whereas Carolyn and Grizz are making the point that it was not originated.
In the same way paganism was, yeah.
Right. My historical roots, I'm not that knowledgeable about it. I'm just trying to make sure the viewers and listeners tend to understand. But Radical, you've been quiet over there, man. What you got?
No, I'm just thinking.
Oh dear.
I'm not trying to crap on anybody. I'm just saying that the religion we have today is so far removed from what was, and the same thing can be said of paganism. So I don't see why people would argue over the history of it versus what it is now. So, yeah, sure, you could say, pagans were the original inhabitants of Europe, and everybody's a Jew that believes in Christ. Okay, whatever. Those are slurs. That's stupid. I'm thinking more along the lines of trying to think of a good metaphor for this, or just something to say that doesn't sound crazy, but like if you think about it like this, like your whole life you've lived in a mansion, but you've only been locked in a closet, and then someone forgot to lock the door, and you get out, and then you find this huge room and these different rooms that are mysterious that you've never seen, and then you wake up to this new world when you become awoken by Jesus Christ and the mystery of that, and then your whole life revolves around learning that. But I don't see how pagans can wake up in the same way. I don't know how pagans come to the realization. Like, do they just say, I'm gonna wake up one day and just start worshiping, Odin or Freya or whatever gods they might be thinking of on that day, because paganism believes in a pantheon of gods. So, and it's all different. No two pagans are the same. But with Jesus, you have a foundation. It's the center of your universe, and it teaches you a lot of things. That's all I have to say.
All right, well, Carolyn, you got some points you want to make?
Yeah, well, there's a lot to say here because, first of all, I think at the beginning of this conversation, it was said that, well, we admit that Christianity is cucked now. We're talking about prior Christianity. But what he just said 1 second ago, which is why I wanted to respond while it was still fresh in everybody's mind, is because he said, why should we be concerned about history? Why shouldn't we be concerned about what's happening now? Well, didn't you just say that Christianity is cucked right now? So that's an important point. So you are telling us to look to history too. So that's in contradiction of yourself. But you made some other points that I think are really important to discuss, because you're saying, why would we? The point was made that, Christianity was adopted, and I think it was the Aussie in the chat who said, just like paganism. Well, I would like to point out that in the entire history of humanity, worldwide, people had always had a holistic ethnos in their tribe, where their worldview was rooted in animistic polytheism. Now, this goes for Polynesians, Asians, Africans, and Europeans. So religion was always ethnic. Not only was it ethnic, but it was tied to your mytho-linguistic group. And it was also tied to ancestor veneration. So your religion was steeped not only in the nature that surrounded you, but your ancestors. So nobody stood up one day and said, hi, I'm a pagan. This was the natural way of being. And this has been proven by anthropologists and archaeologists who have studied even Paleolithic graves. They have found the origins of this animistic polytheism. And now this goes back literally 30,000 years, and you can look this up. You will find the origins of European native faith going back 30,000 years, which makes your 2,000 years seem pretty pale in comparison, except we've already dismantled that, and we've shown that it's not even 2,000 years. It's more like maybe 1,000 years. Plus, paganism lived on in our folk traditions and our practices that we even practice today, going right down to our modern holidays, our holiday rituals, the Easter bunny, Easter eggs, the Christmas tree, Santa Claus coming through your chimney. These all have pagan origins. So paganism has remained a very real force in our lives throughout the generations. And I would ask you why you woke up one day and said why you would worship Yahweh, a God who has origins in Canaanite polytheism, because do not put this "we worship Jesus" on me, because Jesus said that he is the Father. If you've seen him, you've seen the Father. Well, who is his Father? Is it the Lord? Because the Lord actually literally means Freyr, the Norse god. So I guess you're talking about Yahweh. Well, the gentleman had already just said that Jesus came to break the covenant of the Old Testament. So if Jesus broke the covenant of the Old Testament, I would ask you, what God are you worshiping then?
First of all, a lot of what you said couldn't be further from the truth, and I mean that in no disrespectful manner whatsoever. Now, you seem to think that when I said Christianity now is cucked, and you seem to think it's a contradiction that I'm looking to the past. Well, no. Because my form of Christianity, traditionalism, traditional Catholicism, or the Eastern Orthodox Church is still alive today. So it's not a contradiction. You've just failed to understand. Big difference. Now, you said it's more like 1,000 years. Well, no, it's actually more like 2,000 years. We're talking about 1,800 years. Followers of Christ have been around for at least 2,000 years. We know that the Catholic Church has had its roots in Europe, native to Europe. That's where Catholicism started. For about 1,700 years, 1,800 years. You also brought up stuff about Easter and Christmas. Most real Bible believers do not observe these days as Christian holidays, because they're not. And if you want to talk about the Canaanites, who are actually, well, black and from the Levant, these people are like the Lebanese, who were very much homosexuals, and also used to indulge in cannibalism. You know, I don't know if that's if that's representative of European values, which are actually defined by Christian core values. And Jesus is not the Father. I think this is where you misunderstand again, because Jesus is our Father, because he is the shepherd. But he is not the Father. If you understand the concept of the Trinity, you'll understand that. And this is something you brought up before, like how do people pray? Well, most people say, in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, Amen. That's how most people start their prayers. And that is representative of the Trinity. If you fail to understand the Trinity, that's not my fault. It just means you don't understand the concept of the Trinity. I mean, and yeah, you can say that, 50,000 years, even though that's based on radiometric dating and very murky science. That's not really confirmed completely, especially when you get into like the whole legitimacy of carbon dating, for an example. You can say, yeah, that pales in comparison to the 2,000 years, but I'm not really sure that it's that it gives it more value, because from my understanding, paganism literally refers to, from my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, you seem to know what you're talking about, which is a great change, because most pagans I talk to, they can't even tell me the name of their god. They've just watched too many episodes of Vikings and watched Varg, and this is their core fundamentals. So I'm actually very pleased to talk to you, because you seem educated and you know what you're talking about, at least when it comes to paganism.
Well, we like having fun
yeah,
on this channel, don't we?
Yeah, I just don't see the rule of origin to be that makes it better, or that makes it better or worse, for that matter, because we know Abraham himself, he wasn't even a Jew. He was a pagan, and that is a part of the biblical doctrine.
Abraham was a Jew. Abraham was a Jew. I can't let that go. Abraham was a Jew. Abraham was a Jew. Just stop right now. This is because this is going to go to hell if you're going to say that the father figure of Judaism isn't a Jew. Go tell a Jew that and see what they say.
Okay, well, I'm telling you that he was a pagan because the laws of Moses is what defined the Old Covenant, which has been done away with now, but that is what defined the Old Covenant. Did he have a relationship with the Father, God, Logos? Of course he did. But you can't call him a Jew when a Jew is technically, well, you can say he was an ethnic Jew, but when you use the word Jew, you were referring to religion. Okay? And he was technically not a Jew, because Judaism didn't exist. And I don't know how you overlooked that. I feel like I'm mostly responding to...
Jews didn't exist either.
Well, let me just stepping in from a scientific perspective, because I have taken, science courses and whatnot, but just because the term Judaism wasn't around technically when it came in terms to race back then, that doesn't dissolve the science that shows that they are ethnically Jewish by blood.
Yeah, but we're not talking about ethnic Jews. We're not talking about people of that tribe. We're not talking about people of the tribe of Israel. We're talking about religious Jews, and that's why we're speaking about the Old Covenant versus the New Covenant. We were specifically talking about religious Jews, which has got nothing to do with what the biology says.
So your premise then is that the ethnic Jews and the spiritual or religious Jews are two separate entities, or?
Well, there's a lot of overlap, of course, but to say that everybody who... I mean, you have to understand that most of these people are the product of conversion. Like all of these people in Israel, for an example, they're not actual ethnic Jews. In fact, if you go to the Jewish Almanac 1980 version, page 3, under a heading of a brief history of the terms of Jew, keep in mind that this is one of the most important books for the Jews. This is what they themselves say. Quote, "Strictly speaking, it is incorrect to call an ancient Jew, to call an ancient Israelite a Jew, or to call a contemporary Jew an Israelite or a Hebrew." Okay? If you go read Alexander Solzhenitsyn's book, he talks about the fact that 90% of all Jews, at the time approximately 12 million or so, are Ashkenazim. Okay, they are of the Ashkenazi Khazarian line. If you go read the Universal Jewish Encyclopedia, again, I'm using all of their sources. I'm not pulling stuff that fits my bias from very murky sources. I'm going straight to the Jews' own source. They themselves say the exact same thing. They back up exactly what Alexander Solzhenitsyn says. And we're talking about the Universal Jewish Encyclopedia. So, yeah, there is a big difference.
I guess a follow-up question to you then would be, what's your take on the Harvard studies that are written by these scholars that even talk about now openly, and I'll post this link in the chat, was that they're starting to do DNA tests to verify the Ashkenazic or Jewish DNA to become citizens, because they're actually starting to remove the non-Jews from Israel.
What do I think of that? Well, first of all, like I said, 92% of all Jews are the product of conversion. They consider Ashkenazi Jews to be of Abraham, which is ridiculous, because our friend here pointed out the fact that some of the early Christians came from Ethiopia, but so did the early Jews. In fact, this is where female genital mutilation originates from, the Ethiopian Jews. If you have an Ethiopian Jew standing there who's blacker than a spade next to a red-headed Ashkenazi Jew, you cannot tell me that they are of the same lineage. It just doesn't stack up with reality. If you also look into, for an example, where these people came from, if you look at the R1A genetic component, there is a lot of overlay with, for an example, South Sicilian people. You do see that there is an overlap between Sephardic and Ashkenazi, but this is mostly because the leaders of the Ashkenazi tribe a lot of them were actually Hebraic, but you find the tribe itself was a Turkic tribe, and this is what mainstream science says. This is what the Jews themselves say, that they were a Turkic people.
So your premise is essentially that there's a delineation in the genetics between the two of these different groups, in your opinion?
Well, if we're specifically focusing on Ashkenazi, the vast majority of them, and we're talking about averages, okay, we're not talking about everyone. If you're looking at it averagely, you find that these people, yes, they do have a lot of bleed over with Mongolian and even Slavic genetics, but they are a Turkic people.
Interesting. Okay, well, I'm going to let Grizzly jump in, then Carolyn can take the floor after that.
Yeah, one of the things that I kind of just like to ask Christians in general is whether or not they think they have a religion that is more inclined towards civic nationalism. And one thing that I see, just by practice, I need to check the text a little bit better, I'm sure, but just by practice, I do not ever see this being an ethnic-based religion, something that you can surround an ethos in, or an ethnos, or a group of people, or Northern Europeans, or Western Europeans, or any European peoples, because in practice what happens is anyone could be Christian, anybody, it doesn't matter, come into our country. Currently, right now, we're having Christians and Catholics from South America going into the States and basically controlling much of what is now a formerly completely Christian-founded country. Well, I mean, it's based on some things Christian, but
Grizz, I just have to chime in real quick. I just need the audience to know that there is a current rift in the Christian/Catholic community between it being for people of European descent or third worlders. Just want to throw that out there.
So my main question is: do you think it's an ethnos-based religion, and why would you think that? I guess that's my main question.
Is that your question to me?
To either one of you. I guess that would be to Radical Greek, because he hasn't said much.
Orthodoxy, a lot of the Orthodox are ethnically white. It's rare that you'll find a non-white Orthodox, so I don't have any experience. I've never seen a black guy at a Greek Orthodox, Serbian Orthodox, Russian Orthodox church. I don't think they like what we have to say, because it's not all peaches and cream and rainbows and shit. It's more like it's an intellectual thought of God. A lot of the Western world has made Jesus Christ and God impersonable, and you feel like when you go to church, you're under some kind of obligation, or you've signed a contract to be there. It doesn't feel like church. There's no icons. A lot of the churches you'll see have just like a cross with nothing there. And the reason why you walk into an ornate Orthodox church and you see all these beautiful icons, and it's veneration and it's ritual, and it attacks the five senses, where it lets you know you are in a spiritual place. It should be respected, loved, and understood, and it's divine mysteries. And low IQ muds don't realize this. They don't understand God the way a higher IQ white man or ethnic European would. When you go into it, it's more intellectual. And if you ask any Greek Orthodox priest, he'll most likely repeat what I said with the intellectual orthodoxy. It's philosophical. It's very mysterious, and it draws the right kind of people to it. So we don't really baptize any muds. I've never seen it, so it'd be rare as hell if I did see it. That's really it.
Okay, and I guess my same question would be: why do you think that Christianity is not pretty civic nationalist activist?
Well, like I said, I don't represent Christianity per se, at least in its contemporary sense of the word. I've probably got just as many issues as you do with it personally. But if you look into history of Catholicism, you find that the Catholic doctrine is completely in line with nationality. I think everybody on the panel agrees that race is important. I think everybody on the panel agrees that nationality is important. But the core doctrine, in my opinion, when it comes to things like logos and salvation, we're talking about things that transcend skin color. We're talking about logos, the concept of creation. We're talking about salvation. We're talking about things that transcend things like race and ethnicity. But if you look at the history of Catholicism, you find that all of the city-states and all of that sort of stuff. There was never any problem in Europe, for the most part, when there was Catholic rule. You actually find that a lot of these issues in Europe, where power was starting to fall apart in the early days through history, was actually the result of the Reformation, which, again, isn't Catholicism.
All right, Carol. Excuse me, a quick reminder. Is it Caroline or Carolyn?
It's Carolyn, but I'm not one of those people who gets uppity over semantics.
Well, I appreciate that, but I also want to do it right. It's the same name.
I don't care. My honors English teacher for 2 years in a row called me Caroline, and it's clearly phonetically not spelled that way.
Well,
so
you should have bitched her the fuck out. But
it was a he, and he was my favorite teacher, so I was okay with it. But yeah,
Let slide. All right. Well, yeah. What you got as a response?
Well, I think there's a whole lot that actually I would want to respond to, but I think our Australian friend here actually made a really great point that Christianity is about transcending skin color 100%. It is about transcending race 100%. And I'd just like to share with you guys the very first song that I was ever taught as a little child. It goes like this. Red and yellow, black and white, they are precious in his sight. Jesus loves the little children of the world. Now, when we look around today and we see little children in the Western world being handed indoctrination and messaging about multiculturalism in the mainstream by the liberals, I was taught that as a little 2-year-old in a conservative right-wing Christian home. And every time that song, you can go on YouTube and look it up, and every time, even old videos from the 80s, every time they parade a carousel of all the different nations, because he is absolutely right. Christianity does transcend race. In fact, you can...
words out of context.
No. How does it? How is that out of context? It's perfectly in context. It transcends. Hold on. Also, you have been talking about Catholicism. Everybody go on the internet and Google the meaning of the word Catholicism. You know what it means? It means universalism. Universalism. What is universalism a synonym for? Globalism? Globalism, universalism.
Straw
I don't
man.
see how how is that a strong man? Because they mean the same
It's
thing.
a straw man.
Now, if we are all God's children, if we are all, which you still haven't explained how the God of the New Testament is not Yahweh, the Hebrew God of the Old Testament. You haven't explained that. But if we are all the, no, you didn't. No, you didn't. You said Jesus was the Father, but that's not true because Jesus says Jesus is separate from the Father within the Trinity, and the Father. If the Father of the New Testament is not Yahweh of the Old Testament, who is he? You didn't explain that. Now, if we are all children of the one God, hold on, I'm still responding to you. I'm responding to you. You made a lot of points.
Hey,
I'm responding to
hey, play nice, guys. Come on.
Well,
Same team here.
He talks for 15 minutes and says less than I do in 5. So give me my time. Now, if we are all children of the one God, that's a slippery slope between we are all one race and we are all universalists together. Now, what was Christendom if it was not the EU 1.0? This was an eradication of ethnic identity. And in fact, if you go into the New Testament, since we started out this discussion talking about the Greek, the original Greek word for pagan was ethnikos. Look it up. Ethnikos. Saul of Tarsus, the Jew, had a directive to pull people out of their ethnos. That's exactly what he was doing, and pulling him into universalism, which is exactly what the elites are doing today. Now, if you go...
Why are most pagans black? Ever heard of Hinduism?
Yes, that's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up, because all people of the world in their natural state have...
And Buddhists are also Asian.
Have an indigenous faith. Hinduism is the indigenous faith of Indians. You're right about that. Paganism is the indigenous faith of Europeans,
outside of India?
And the exact word for pagan in the Bible was ethnikos, which proves my point that you so kindly handed to me, that yes, we did have an ethnic faith, and that is exact. Well, then why does the Greek word for pagan, why is it ethnikos? Why? Because they were taking us out of our ethnic faith into a universalist faith. The very first Christian nation was Ethiopia. Now, there's another important point here, because now, in the indigenous European tradition, we did not have the divine right of kings, which came in under the Christendom monotheism. So monotheism brought in the monarchy as we know it today. And if you look into Charlemagne, you can go on the internet and Google Charlemagne and Jews, and you will find that Charlemagne, that contrary to what Christians talk about Catholicism stood against the Jews. No, Charlemagne brought them in and made allowances for them and was very favorable to them. And it's recorded in the history that his son, Louis the Pious, was even more favorable to Jews than his father was, even though he went on campaigns where he burned all of the records and the holy books and our indigenous mythos. So they were destroying and erasing our culture while they were granting favors to the Jews. Charlemagne probably could have killed a lot more Muslims in Spain had he not been killing his own white brothers on the mainland. Okay, so there's a lot to history that's misrepresented there. And it's, if we're going to say now that people are erasing our culture, and if they're telling us now that white men are evil, if white men are the demons of the world, and we should be ashamed of our history and our heritage, well, what does it say when Christians say you were pagan barbarians and you needed us to civilize you? Is that a liberal speaking or is that a Christian speaking? I'm not sure, because they say the same thing. Your turn.
Okay, well, you're using a lot of straw man arguments, first of all. Like, you keep going back to this idea of, well, first of all, let me start with the persecutions, because I believe Grizzly brought that up and I didn't get to respond to him.
This isn't a tit for tat sort of thing. I just want to throw it out there. So you guys, you're doing good. Just trying to keep it on the rails.
I did bring that up, yeah.
Sure. I mean, I would actually like to bring up some points myself. I just feel like Greek and I are actually on the receiving end of their all of their false understandings of history. So first of all, the idea
Carolyn's
of
very opinionated, so feel free to get your points out there while you can.
She's also very well.
None of that was opinion. That's all verifiable. Go look it up.
Very vocal, I'll say.
It's actually not. Well, first of all, the idea of persecutions and slaughters. I mean, even in Rome, up until about 200 AD, you saw a constant persecution and slaughter of Christians. You know, one of the Caesars used to use Christians as candles. I mean, there was a lot of back and forth, and to say, "Oh, my Holocaust, I want reparations. Oh, you killed us, oy vey." I think that's, you know, I mean, we're talking about a long time ago.
They used to feed Christians to lions in the arena.
Yeah, we're talking about, you know, I mean, if you want to hold on to the past, like the Kangs and the Showanites, you know, that's your shtick. You're not going to get reparations. I think we can all move on, because there was a lot of persecution that was occurring on both sides. I mean, you yourself brought up the Canaanites, who were, what color were they again? They weren't white. They certainly weren't from the Slavic regions, or they weren't from, you know, the Viking areas. And you find that, yes, like I said, most pagans are actually black. Now, you spoke about this idea of universalism and, oh, well, pagan means ethnos. Well, if you actually understand...
Ethnikos.
If you actually understand what paganism is, it's an umbrella term that defines groups of religion that have pre-Abrahamic datings. So we're talking about Hinduism, we're talking about a lot of different religions, including all sorts of tribes that came from Africa. That needs to be brought up. And a lot of the people that even predate some of those tribes, if depending how you look at history, a lot of these people came from...
Did you just say pagans was kings?
A lot of them were, yeah. Of course they were. A lot of them were. A lot of the... Well, hang on. I'm just being honest here.
That's what
also
they believed
South
in.
America, the native Indian Americans, pagans. Aboriginals of Australia, which are said to have the longest history of all humans, if you believe what mainstream Darwinists say, which I'm not fully in line with, but they had a pagan tradition. Okay, so... You know, this idea of we was here first and all of that sort of stuff, I just don't get into that. And you have to wonder about a God that has allowed all of these persecutions to happen to his own people. I mean, Christianity is definitely on the decline now in Europe. And this is why Europe is in the state that it's in, because they're living in a hedonistic society. Like in France, for an example, 5% of people there go to church. In fact, more people go to a mosque than they do a church. And this is why Europe is in a state of decline. It's because it's escaping Christian morality, which is defined by the Christian doctrine, which comes from the New Testament, which again was written in Greek by Greek-speaking people. So you can say that the first church or whatever was in Ethiopia, but you have to understand that the first followers of Christ, like Peter, who was the first bishop of Rome, these people, a lot of them were Greeks. There was no connection to Ethiopia. So that needs to be said. I think you're misconstruing words. I don't know if you're doing it purposefully or if you just watch too many videos on Thulian's Perspective YouTube channel. But what you're saying is just simply wrong, and it needs to be said. I'm going to end there, but I would like to say that I mean, there are some things that we can bring up, I hope, but it just, like I said, it feels like we're constantly on the receiving end here. I wasn't even aware that we were having a debate. I thought we were having a discussion.
It's a discussion. That's what I remind everybody to, you know, play nice. we're not attacking each other's belief systems again, but why are they beneficial to ourselves and the movement at hand?
Right. Can we just re-specify what the topic of discussion was about?
Yeah, I feel like we've gotten a little off track. You know, it always happens. You guys have been very well behaved, I must say. But why is Christianity or paganism, and I say it in that order because of alphabetical order, why is it beneficial to yourself as an individual, but also what benefits does it bring to the European/white identity movement going on within the United States? Let's not even concern ourselves with what's going on in Europe right now, but for us with an well, yeah, you're in Australia, so I don't know how this applies to you, but how can this apply to the movement at hand? I know you have a lot of things to deal with down there, down under.
Oh, do you want me to go first?
No. I'd like to get some input from the people who have been speaking so much tonight, but I think we may be getting Sven in here. I'd like to. He was originally scheduled to come on. Grizz was filling for him, and yeah, I'm sure he'd love to chime in with the pagan perspective. But again, the issue is not why is one better than the other, but what benefits to the cause do these ideologies have?
Well, I have something to say on that.
All right.
Well, because it was said that paganism is black. Well, again, like I would like to explain to people that in our natural state of being before universalism, which of course he said before Abrahamism, but of course we know that that's not true because Zoroastrianism is a monotheistic religion that predates Abrahamism, and so is can't think of it off the top of my head right now, but the Egyptian one. And what we find is that worldwide, ethnic religion was the natural state of being for all people. So for him to say, well, there's so many black pagans, well, that's irrelevant because we're not black. European paganism is for ethnic Europeans, just like Polynesian paganism is for Polynesians. Now, this was technically a universal religion, but it was not universalist because it was ethnic specific, and it was rooted in
benefit Europe.
Because I'll tell you why. Because number one,
real quick, I just have to chime in, Carolyn. I do need to mention that the point you made regarding paganism being different amongst different races is an excellent perspective, or it's a valid point. But the same rule, from my understanding, applies to the different variations of Christianity out there. And I'll come back to this later, but there are pagans and Christians have more in common than they'd like to think, but I'll bite my tongue in the meantime.
Could I just say one thing? Paganism is an ethno-religion. It is based on an ethnos. It certainly is.
Well, it's heavily steeped in ancestor veneration. It literally is blood and soil. And what are we fighting for right now? We are literally fighting for blood and for our soil. We are fighting for our race. We are fighting for our survival, and we are fighting for the very homelands that our race originated on. So if we do not grab a blood and soil religion that's rooted in our very blood and our soil, how do we think we're going to preserve this by grabbing onto a universalist God that will just accept everybody? I mean, which religion is only for white people? It's not Christianity.
That's not true.
No, I gotta chime in. I'm not trying to get involved in discussion, but the Unitarians are entirely separate from Christians and Catholics. I need that.
I was going to say that. Yeah, I was going to say that we're not universalists. Orthodox religion was European from the start, so everybody was.
If wants to jump in on the Christian side, I can be the sole moderator.
Everybody was.
I'm just trying to provide some clarity. That's all.
Goose has already thrown in his lot here.
The universal thing about everybody becoming Christian, that's a new thing to Christianity, especially Orthodoxy. We don't run around trying to convert everybody we meet, and that's not part of our doctrine. We don't do that. If someone wants to listen about, hear about God and they want to understand it, yeah, we'll tell them some things, but we're not going to sit here and tell them they have to join our church or any of that. That's not what Orthodox does. I'm just letting you guys know that's not how we do it. And it's all white people, and that's why you have Greek Orthodox, Serbian Orthodox, Bosnian, Russian Orthodox. These are all ethnically white. There isn't black people in these churches. I mean, if you see one, it's like a unicorn. You're not going to see a black family on Sunday at the Greek church with Greek people everywhere. It's ethnically Greek. I mean, the state is, our flag's got a cross on it. I mean, how much more Christian do you have to be? You know what I mean?
Also, the level of immigration that we have today is very much it can't be linked to any religious ideology within itself.
Yeah, that's globalism.
The fact that
you have a lot of prots chiming in.
Well, the fact that we had, black people living in black countries and white people living in white countries, that was just a natural thing because people weren't moving intercontinental like they are today. They didn't have planes and trains back then. So to say that this is because of paganism it's just a fallacy. But I mean, if everyone's on the same boat here, I mean, we can agree to disagree. I'd like to actually move on to the question that asked.
Yeah, I want to get Sven's perspective too, because he's been kind of waiting quietly since he jumped in.
I've been waiting for some input from Sven. I want to provide a little background information, even though I didn't provide any to us. But Sven, can you hear us? I don't think you can.
I think he might be setting up his mic here.
Understandable. Well, while I was doing so, I want to make it known that I, Gustav of House of Faust, am not playing favorites tonight. I do have my own ideologies that I try to bite my tongue with, but that being said, the pagan sector has made some valid points about the feminization of Christianity. Now, I'm sure that's something that Christians have an issue themselves to take up with, how they do not like how their personal faith has been turned to a religion of nonstop turning the other cheek while you watch your family get raped and pillaged.
Yes.
Well, I actually have a follow-up question that I kind of wanted to ask the people representing Christianity on the panel tonight. Was that how?
Get all the questions.
Well, it was just a question I've actually had. I was going to say, how do you guys plan on reforming the religion to the point where it's not egalitarian and universalist and multicultural? Because it's at the point that it's at, like I myself grew up in the church, and I've been to churches around not just the country but around the world, and the same doctrine of universalism and liberalism resides in 95% of the Christian churches that I've attended,
which are all in America.
Yeah, I've actually been to some Christian churches in Australia too.
Well, that's interesting. Maybe we can talk about that later, because I'm very much interested to hear more about that. But, I mean, the same thing can be said about, I mean, look at all these middle-aged white women that adopt Buddhism or Hinduism, or that are reading the Kabbalah. You know, I mean, all religions are universal at this point, and to say that they're not is just a bold-faced lie. But how do we overcome it? Well, you know, I can only look after me, my own home, and my family. What you're talking about is a political issue, okay? It is a political issue that our politicians who work for the Jews are doing this to undermine their host nation. I don't believe
this is why I say that politics and religion are so strongly tied together, for the exact point that you just made. Like, that's exactly why I think that the religion and the race and the people and their beliefs, they need to be united under something. It's
a very good point. It's a very good point that you brought up, and I think the answer would be you can link this level of huge immigration directly to the decline of Christendom. You know, for an example, I mean, let's take the idea of morality. You know, the Western world's traditional and societal values is more or less pretty much entirely made up of Christian morality. And I think this is important because when you look into it, you see that I think we can all agree that, you know, Europe, Australia, America, all of the British Commonwealth states is in a state of decay. I don't think anybody's really, anyone on this panel is really happy about what's going on. And again, this is why I say it's more to do with nationality and politics. I mean, I think we can all agree, like I said, that Europe is in a state of decay. And I think this is because Europe has adopted a form of hedonism, cultural Judaism, and this is directly linked to the killing of birth rates, which gives rise to homosexuality, which most pagan societies was fine with, promotes abortion, promotes birth control, puts women out of the home and children into the hands of the state, all of which lead directly to the weakness. Hang on. All of this leads directly to the weakness of culture, declining birth rates, and all of this is exactly why Europe is collapsing today. Because from my perspective, they are leaving Christendom behind. Europe no longer has the Christian morality needed in order to stand up against these destructive levels of immigration. All of this is because of the Jew and hedonism, not because of Christianity. That needs to be said. There is huge corruption going on in the church right now, and the people who are affected most by this are the Christian people. And because of the people of Europe who are native...
Let Carolyn respond after you're done.
It's been subverted and destroyed from the inside out.
By the Velvet Mafia. Just throw it out there.
The Lavender Mafia did it.
Lavender, thank you.
All right, we'll let Carolyn respond to that.
Take the floor,
Well, there's so much to go on here, but I would argue when you start actually looking into the into the history, which Christians really don't do, you find a lot of repetition of platitudes that don't actually hold up to the history. For instance, I started studying Vlad the Impaler, and what I found was that this whole notion of Christendom, it's all a lot of lies and bullshit, because here's this guy fending off these crazed Muslims, and his neighbors barely helped him out. Some of his immediate next door neighbors, sometimes they helped, sometimes they didn't. The rest of wider Christendom did nothing while this guy was getting slammed over and over and again. And then do you know that his own cousin, also a Christian, actually kidnapped him, captured him, kept him hostage for 12 years. Vlad the Impaler, fighting this massive, supposedly Christian warrior against the Muslims, was betrayed by his own Christian neighbors and kept a hostage. And then his cousin said, well, you're an Orthodox. I'm only going to release you if you convert to Catholicism. So again, this whole point that it's Christianity. Well, which Christianity is it? Is it going to be Orthodox? Is it going to be Catholicism? Is it going to be Protestantism? Because each one will tell you that they're the right one. But I'll tell you one thing, not one of these versions of Christianity has any root in ancestor veneration. And right now, when the liberals... Let me explain it. Stop interrupting me. When we have liberals telling us that our ancestors are evil, just like you said, we need your ideology to give us morality. The liberals are saying the same thing. We need their ideology because our ancestors were evil. But you know what? With ancestor veneration, we honor our ancestors. We respect our ancestors. And since you brought up Hinduism, my good Hindu buddy told my audience that he wakes up every day and the first thing he does before he leaves his house is honor his ancestors. So I'm glad you brought up Hinduism, because what would the difference be in the West today if every single one of us honored our ancestors before we even walked out the door?
Can I back off that real quick?
I'm just going to say this real quick, super quick. What she said is a straw man, because I could equally say, well, where were the pagans when the Moors and the Jews needed to be kicked out of Spain or Italy or most of Europe? They were nowhere to be seen. It was the Catholics. It was the Reconquista.
You had killed them by that time. Duh.
No.
What do you know your history? Where you're talking about 1,000 years difference. 1,000 years difference. Well, I urge you to Google the Saxon Wars. Google the Saxon Wars. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. I can't handle it. Because it's getting ridiculous.
You're talking over the top of me. Have some respect, please.
Okay, please try. Can you drink some coffee, because it's really getting tedious.
Play nice, guys.
Now, as I was saying before, I was really interrupted.
You interrupted her a lot.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you for white knighting. That's beside the point. That's neither here nor there. Now,
you guys get a pin in this soon. We got Sven to get in here.
Yep. I could just as well say, where were all of the pagans when people needed to be kicked out of Europe? But I'm not going back to that, okay? And
check your timeline.
To say that Christian morality, defined by the Bible, which preaches against sexual immorality, which has led to, in a lot of ways, the collapsing of Europe, is the same as what the liberals said. That is a bald-faced lie and a strawman argument, which is exactly what you've been doing this whole entire discussion.
All right, well,
You've read the Bible, right?
I'll say this real quick then, before she responds, because I just wanted to get this in here. There's no need for, I think I told Will of R this the other night, and I'll just say it again because it got brought up now. We don't need to separate, our political structure, our religion, or our ethnos, because it's all combined under paganism. There's no necessity to reinvent the wheel. We had a good thing going
Before travel and immigration, which was a political thing.
Before the Northern Crusades and the eradication of our people by people from Southern religions.
Oh, my Holocaust.
Alright, real quick, putting a pin in this conversation. We're bringing Sven in. He was supposed to be here originally. He's joining us now. Everyone give a warm round of applause to our friend, Sven.
Welcome.
Sven, welcome aboard.
Hello, Sven.
Hey, can you guys hear me now?
Yes, we can. That was fault on my end. Let's not speak of it again.
Beautiful. Okay, so sorry for being late. I've had a lot of things come up. But I really would like to ask some questions about the morality of Christians to our Australian friend.
All right, before we get into that, I need to know we can't have we can't have a 3-on-2. It's
I'm
just
now a
not
moderator.
fair.
Yeah, it's
All
not
right.
fair, guys.
Is Will? All right, Will's gonna hush tonight. So Grizz, you're back on the sidelines with me. Welcome.
I'm a moderator.
Oh, excellent. We have no opinions here whatsoever. All right, so Sven, take it away.
So I have to ask, you spoke about Christian morality, and I would love to ask you what it is, but I don't think I can sit through 15 minutes till you get there. So let's talk about Christian morality going forward. I hear a lot of talk about the present. I hear a lot of talk about the past. Presently, Christian morality is opening the floodgates to all of our borders and all of our countries.
No,
Christianity
that's hedonism. That's hedonism and cultural Judaism.
Christianity is based on egalitarianism, right?
No.
Oh, so we're not all created equal? We're all not equal under God's eyes? No race?
Of course we are. Of course we are. But that doesn't mean that there's a contradiction between that and nationalism, specifically when it was the Catholics that enforced that. Okay?
No.
That needs to be said, yes.
You could talk about that all you want, but I can tell you is we can go on Google right now. I can challenge everybody in the audience. Go on Google, and of course you're going to say that. But let's go on Google and let's see exactly what it says about the church helping dreamers or the church helping illegal immigrants. Right now, they are in favor. I don't even read that Abrahamic filth, bro. I'm sorry. But like the whole, they're letting everyone into our country because it's based on egalitarianism. Now, if you look up the root word of egalitarianism, where does it come from? It comes from Christianity. You can't deny this. You can Google that too.
I am denying
Okay.
it. That is a vague lie. Okay.
He denies reality.
Guys, I need to chime in and make it fair that there are sects of Christianity that are advocating for the importation of third world migrants against the wishes of practicing normal Christians out there. It needs to be said because there are usurpers within the religious institutions, no different than the educational institutions. It needs to be said and known. It is a completely unbiased position, but there are people from outside of our country who have usurped every facet and institution within our country and our independent nations. I know it's happening down in Australia as well. So it just needs to be said that not everything going on within the institution of the church or churches is because Christians want it. I just need it to be said because, unfortunately, paganism does not have current institutions, which I wish were not the case, but it's the reality we live in. It is nice to see people...
We do currently, though.
Can I respond
to
that
US?
question?
Yes, in the U.S.
Well, that's good to know. I'm glad to see it's rebuilding after so much decimation, but that's my point, is that every institution we are surrounded by is being currently infiltrated by outside agents and globalists, if you will. But anyway, carry on.
Well,
So if you take a look at the egalitarian concepts that are being pushed, and you can deny egalitarianism having its root origin in Christianity all you'd like, but it's all over the internet. It's everywhere you look. You can look it up. These are actual facts.
show me where it says that in the Bible.
You have
Please.
Google, or as you call it, Joogle. Use your fingers and type it in. Otherwise, I can put it in Google it for you, and I can put it there.
Here. I've got my Bible in front of me right now. Tell me where it says.
Dude, I'm not going to quote your Jewish trick.
Exactly.
Okay.
So what you're doing is.
But you want to talk about your Jewish trick? Let's talk about it then. Let's talk about Noah.
I can't. Hang on. Are you saying I can't find some website that speaks negatively against paganism?
Dude, you can find everything everywhere geared toward everybody's perspective. Like,
I think you're missing the point. My doctrine doesn't come from some website written by Judaizers who are following a watered-down version of Christianity. My doctrine and traditional values come from the Bible.
Christianity, is it Abrahamic? It is, right?
Abrahamic. Well, we've already been over this. I know you came to the discussion late, but that was pretty much the first half of this conversation.
Right, but it's Abrahamic, right? I mean, it's a simple yes or no. Is it Abrahamic?
It's an Abrahamic religion, but it's native to Europe.
Thanks, man. That's all you got to say, man. It's a Jewish creation. Like,
no,
Plato,
Greek.
The beginning is the most important part. The beginning is the most important part. The whole roots of your philosophy, if that's what you think to say, that's fine.
Are you saying that Christianity is Jewishness? I just want to be clear. Is that what you're saying?
Judaism is the originator of Abrahamic religion. You follow two books, the Old Testament, the New Testament. The Old Testament is Abrahamic in origin. That is your origin. That is what you look toward.
No, it's not. I get my final authority from the New Testament, which is written by Greeks, in Greek, at the time, for the Greek people.
Dude, literally, it's so funny you say that, because that's literally what every Christian always says about their different beliefs. It's like as if communism wasn't done their way, which is actually funny, because egalitarianism... Well, hold on. Egalitarianism, like I was trying to get at earlier, is rooted in its origin of Christianity. Now, let's also...
You're trying to say that makes it that anyone who's a Christian, it's a contradiction to be a nationalist and a conservative, which again is a lie and a straw man argument, because that's not true. You find Christians are very conservative.
We'll talk about what the conservative Christians are doing in just a moment, trust me. But let's finish talking about this egalitarianism, okay? I wasn't even finished.
Actually,
egalitarianism is rooted in Christianity. Its rebirth was communism, which is based on egalitarianism. That's why you're so scared to admit that it's egalitarian, because you know that it's based the same.
No, you're putting words in my mouth now.
Okay, so is communism based on equality?
Are you going to say that communism is in line with the Christian nations? I mean, do you know what happened in World War II? Okay, are you aware? Do you think it was a bunch of Christians?
History goes way further back than just that.
No, we're not going to get into some back and forth. I just want that to be known. We're going to have to get some of the others to chime in soon.
Yeah, we've already gone over a lot of this, and he's using, lies for a start.
Okay, well, I've got some truth for you. And my religion does not say that the inherit the kingdom. My religion does not say turn the other cheek. My religion is rooted in blood and soil. My religion is rooted in ancestor veneration. My religion tells me that our ancestors were great men of honor and strength and integrity, and they were mighty warriors. And we do not worship death.
That's why they all died.
We worship... Well, they didn't die. We lived. Our faith lived on in the folk tradition. Now, you do not, when you bow your head and pray, every single white person who's praying to the Lord is literally praying to the god Freyr. The word Lord comes from, yes, it is in the Germanic tradition. If you're not going to use the name Yahweh, then I don't know who you think you're praying to.
Can you show me where the word Lord is in the Greek Septuagint, please?
Well, do you use the word Lord? Does your pastor use the word Lord? Because we're speaking English, and in the English. Which word do you use? Tell us which word do you use when you pray to God?
I speak English. So
do you call him Right, and in English, the word Lord means Frere, the god Frey.
Yeah, but that
in
word
the
doesn't
Germanic.
come from the Greek Septuagint. That's what I'm trying
Then
to say.
why don't you use the word in the Greek Septuagint then? Because
I speak English.
Maybe we should ask the Greek monarchist. Radical? You got a take on that?
All right, well, I did want to also point out that if we're just going to throw science out the window and we're going to throw carbon dating out the window and we're going to say that Abraham was... I'm sure next the Celts were the lost Hebrews. So it's like you can't really have a real conversation with these people because real history just goes right out the window.
Can I just say
You're
that...
a very angry person, aren't you?
Why? Because they're making points?
Hang on, guys. No, we're not getting that shit. I'm putting a pin in it now. We ain't fucking going that road. Radical, what do you have to add to the conversation?
I just wanted to switch gears for a second and say that Orthodoxy is the worship in its liturgical form, the doctrine of Trinity. We don't divide the nature or confuse the person from the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. So, Orthodoxy is nature. So it's more pagan in that sense where you can't separate the physical from the spiritual. So that is what Orthodoxy believes. The Gospels are set up like that. The liturgy is set up like that. We're a liturgical church. We don't just open the Bible and read Bible passages and interpret what it says. We have all these great people who were sainted for their acts of greatness and kindness, brave warriors. There's been a lot of warriors in the Orthodoxy, just like in the pagans. There's been great warriors on both sides. You can't. I don't want to disrespect pagans because, to me, it's like Christianity, Orthodoxy, and paganism are like the same thing to me. In a way, I'm not going to just say I agree 100% with paganism, or I disagree with this or that. But I just believe in Jesus Christ and how He came down and basically untied the noose from the fallen. Removed the knots. So, the way Catholics believe is different from the way Orthodox believe. We have the same principles, and maybe we have, let me see what I wrote down here. We're supposed to be healing divisions and not separating each other by our differences. So, if that makes sense to anybody?
I like that.
We should heal ourselves. We shouldn't be fighting amongst ourselves over what's better, what's not. I say if you want to be pagan, that's great. Just, I'm not forcing you to be Orthodox. I'm not telling you must do this, you must do that. My religion is my religion. It's personal. But at the same time, my religion doesn't believe in individualism. It believes in this individual shit that's come out is Jewish. This whole universalist shit, Jewish. It's not theology, not traditional theology. This is all subverted nonsense. If you pick up any book and it tells you that, you got to love everybody, you're not going to love somebody who raped your child or raped your wife or murdered your husband or any of that shit. You're going to be pretty vengeful. You're going to want to seek revenge. And in the Bible, you can get that revenge if you know where to look and you know how to do it. It's a ritual. So.
Hey, Radical.
Yeah.
Ask you a question, man. You said that universalism is Jewish?
Yeah.
What does the actual root word for Catholicism actually mean?
It would mean, if you're talking about Catholicism, it is a universal belief.
Exactly. It's universal religion.
No, see,
but wait a minute.
Hang on.
Too profane to understand that.
Wait.
Okay, when you live in a hedonistic reality and you don't understand that there are things that extend beyond physicality in this world, of this world, it's very much a spiritual concept, but you don't seem to be grasping that.
But besides that, Radical, what you got to add on that? Hold on. You had something.
Hold on. Hedonistic, what do you mean?
No. To hell with the hedonism.
With kids? Or what are you talking about?
We're not going down that road. We're not going to attack across the aisle. That is not what this conversation was for. Is what does each sect bring to the movement? And I'm getting short.
Okay, so let's talk about where the movement's going. We're going to need an ethno state eventually, right? And
right,
how
but that's
is that
like
gonna
50
happen?
moves ahead of where we're at. I mean, you saw the Kavanaugh hearing today. That's
Oh,
where
it
we're
took-
at right now.
And it took the Israelites, what, 2,000 years to get their homeland back?
You
know
just
what I mean?
let me help moderate real
Yeah,
quick.
please do. Chime in, Grizz.
Ben. I think there were some complaints that we were not directing questions at the pagans, and I think they should be allowed to ask whatever they want.
Oh, that's
Since there's a
interesting.
lot of
I got
questions
the
directed at
Well, I do have some points I'd like to bring up.
I saw questions directed at the Christian side, but again, it's not about questioning each other's religion. It's trying to persuade the audience what yours brings to the movement. You consider yourself both ISPs, and
Okay.
I'm moving to a house. What do you bring to the table?
Okay, let's talk about folkish paganism, as in our original religions, okay? They are only meant for us. They're only meant for European descent. That is the folkish part of it. It's not universalist. So later on down the road, when it comes time when we're trying to get an ethno-state, what's going to help us in the long run? A folkish religion that's centered on us and our ancestors, or a universalist religion to where that you're bringing in everybody else?
Okay, I can go first for a second. The traditionalists. Okay, so individualist faith can be seen as a result of the separation between nature and spirit, and Christianity's never been separate from that. The nature and spirit have always been the same from where I come from. So it would be healthier for the person or the family if we had that connection to nature with spirit, with God or Jesus Christ in the family, because prior to the flood of third world immigration to the United States, people didn't like Christianity, certain factions of it. I mean, there was Catholic, Protestant, I don't know what other Christianity existed in America at the time, but they didn't get along. They didn't agree. They didn't believe in the same thing. They always had infighting. So we would have to agree on one kind of, Christian belief or one kind of paganism to make it fair for everybody. Or we could go this way and say, we're all adults here and you can believe what you want and I won't infringe on your beliefs, and be totally cool with whatever you want to believe in. If you want to burn a cross in your backyard, that's cool. I don't care. It's not my problem. I mean, you're not coming after me, right? So that's fine. I want to, venerate the Virgin Mary in Jesus' name. I'm not going to sit here and tell you, or I don't expect you to come over and tell me what am I doing. I'm some kind of nasty person for that. You know what I mean? So I'm with accepting everybody, as long as they're white, though, because I don't want any muds in my religion. And if they wanted to convert, I would just say, here's the rope. So that's about it. I mean,
I think that's a fair point, and I think that's a perfect opportunity to introduce everybody's closing statements. And before everyone does that on our mind, we're all on the same side.
Absolutely.
On the timeline right now, I know there are squabbles between the different faiths, but it is no different than the French and the English going at each other's throats. It is no different depending on, monarchy versus Protestantism. There are many variables that we can get to down the road, but in the meantime, we need to focus on the major threats at hand towards Western civilization, which happen to be Judaism and Islam. They are the cornerstones to the destruction of the West, and I think it's important for people with a Western sense of identity and a white European ancestry to embrace their heritage and identity and preserve whatever culture they hold dear to their hearts. Now, that being said, I failed earlier, so I figure it's a good opportunity now. Ladies first. Carolyn, what you got?
Well, I'm actually interested in what our Aussie friend has to say about when our Greek friend says that we must choose one Christianity, and he only wants white people, because we started out this conversation with our friend saying that Christianity transcends race. So I would like to hear from him before I go.
Okay, sure. Look, I'm going to have to go soon, but I will respond to that and hope old mate's question with our final closing statements. And like I said, I'm not trying to be rude, but I do think people misunderstand me when I say that our core beliefs and values transcends race. And that's not because race isn't not important. Okay, you have to understand, if you know what Christian morality is, which I've already explained 3 times, I'm not going to go back over it. Okay, you know, there are things that are beyond the flesh, beyond materialism, beyond hedonism. There is something, whether you want to call it salvation, the afterlife, the cosmos, logos. There is something bigger than your flesh that you are sitting in today, and of course that ascends race. Of course it does.
Is it my turn?
Yeah, have at it. I guess we're going with closing statements now. It seems like I know we're ending a little early unless you guys want to keep this conversation going.
I say keep going.
Keep going.
It doesn't bother me.
I'm getting kind of tired, guys. It's been 2 hours.
Yeah, until people have to call it a night. I'd say just let them finish their points, and then whenever they're done, then we can wrap it up.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get the conversation back on a more unified perspective of the importance of the ideologies regarding ourselves and our communities.
I would just let people who maybe don't know anything about indigenous European faith that we do also believe that life transcends death. We do also believe in the afterlife. We do also believe in a spiritual realm. It's just that our spiritual is not does not transcend race, and our spiritual realm is specific to our race, and it's rooted in ancestor veneration. So I would point to some of the issues that we're experiencing as a culture today, such as, well, number one, the disparagement and the demonization of old white men that they're doing by the left. And I look to my ancestors who are no longer here, and my religion tells me that they are still involved in my life, and I can talk to them and they give me strength, because my grandmother always told me, you come from strong stock, and I know that. I use that in my own messaging quite frequently to tell people that I know that it's in my blood, and my religion is also in my blood, and I honor my ancestors. So when I see them being attacked by the left, I have every impetus to defend them, and I feel infused by their power on a spiritual level. They live in me so that I can stand up for our own. And when we see gender confusion everywhere in the mainstream, and we see men who don't know how to be men, women who don't know how to be women, and gender roles being tossed up, confused, and in gender itself, we're being told that it doesn't exist. Well, I would say here is a pantheon rooted in our very ethnicity that gives us strong male archetypes. When we need strength today, are we going to turn the other cheek and say that meek will inherit the kingdom? Or are we going to look at Thor and at Zeus and at these strong masculine men that we need today? Thor was considered the defender of the folk. That's what we need. We need a figure that is tied to the folk by blood, and his very mission is to defend the folk and no one else, because it doesn't transcend race. It is specific to our race, and his only function is to defend our people and no one else. But we also have Frigga to give us this soft, motherly, maternal role. We have fertility deities. We have fertility symbolism. When we have fertility failing all across the West, why wouldn't we resurrect a fertility cult to emphasize fertility and fill our community with symbols that represent life and rejuvenation? These are all things that our indigenous ethnic faith, that literally means blood and soil, has to offer us. Go on.
Hear, hear.
I think that's a entirely valid statement coming from the pagan sector. Grizz, you got anything to add on that? Or I'm sorry, Sven, you're filling it. Yeah, what you got anything?
Shit, I'll try after Carolyn just killed it. Well, for me, the biggest issue that I have
that baby.
with yeah,
no, I'm
sorry,
just kidding. I'm kidding. We love kids on House of Fest.
Lifestyle.
Children, white European children, are a white pill to us all, and I think everybody needs to start, instead of, take a cue from Build-A-Bear. Build a child. Make a child. It's fun.
Yeah, my kids are pagan. Well, both of my children's mothers are pagan. My kids are going to be pagan. What I can guarantee you is that they won't marry a based black Christian guy or girl. But the whole issue that I have in closing with all of this is that the whole Christianity, it's based upon egalitarianism. I don't care what this guy has to say about that. It's Googleable. You'll be able to find it. This is also the basis of communism. This is egalitarianism. It means equality. And we will never get to where we're supposed to be if we don't dismantle this idea of equality. It's a lie. It does not work. So that's about all I got to say.
So I need to chime in again. I have my own personal opinions, but I'm trying to make sure things are clear to the audience that are gracing us with their presence. It seems to be that those on the pagan side blame Christianity for the work of globalism. And
Christianity is globalism.
Right, you see Christianity as a tool for globalism.
Well, it's multicultural, isn't it? It is.
I know many
people
who would disagree, and I say, honestly, many people who would disagree with that. I look forward to having more of these in-depth religious discussions. I think it is. I was hesitant at first, but Will convinced me that these are necessary and healthy discussions that need to be had. And the only way we're going to get to the root bottom solution of this is actually if we actually talk while respecting each other to a certain degree, which I'm very proud of everyone for this evening is doing as well as they did. I know these conversations never turn up well, and there are many more in-depth differences that need to be discussed regarding the use of Christianity as a tool of globalism, especially regarding Protestantism versus Catholicism. And I don't know if there are any separations within paganism, but I'm happy to receive input and do any shows on that in the future if you guys have anything you'd like further discussed within a more subsect of paganism. Again, these are important issues to discuss, not for what we are facing in the current, because we're facing more immediate threats that apply to us as a whole, but these discussions will benefit our children and grandchildren down the road so that they know where they can stand ideologically and what they should and need to defend.
Absolutely. Can I give my closing statement?
Yes, please. Yeah, no, I just want to chime in before you and Radical got off on it.
And believe it or not, I actually, with my closing statement, which I'm going to wrap up really as quick as I can, I actually want to end on agreeing with one of the things that Carolyn said. The meek will not inherit the kingdoms. Absolutely, the meek will not inherit the kingdoms. And this is probably why pagan nations didn't last with the advent of Christianity. History shows us that proof is in the pudding. I mean, Christians are fruitful and powerful, traditionally speaking, and don't take my word for it. I'm not talking ideologically, on paper, I'm talking historically. And this is exactly why the Jews are destroying our doctrines, our churches, and morals. I mean, in short, Christianity basically created not only the modern world, but also Western civilization inside and outside Greece and Rome. I mean, it's really that simple. And if people want the proof in the pudding, you know, where has it worked in practice? Well, it has. I mean, the rise of Europe is directly linked to the rise of Christendom, not paganism, Christendom. The collapse of Europe is directly correlated to the decline of Christendom. That needs to be said. Europe is becoming Islamic and atheist, not pagan and not Christian. That needs to be said. Immigration, cultural Marxism, and cultural Judaism increases as Christian and conservative values are constantly stood on. So if you want a real working, like old mate said before, let's not reinvent the wheel. Paganism, historically speaking, has not worked where Christianity has, as long as we've held on to those core beliefs and values and doctrines that are not broken. And that's my final statement.
Excellent. Great.
I thought that they gave final statements though. So can I respond to what he said real fast?
I didn't take those as final statements earlier, but if you got a quick thing that's not attacking of them, then sure.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out the Roman Empire. That's all I had to say. You can move on.
Yeah, sure. After that, I'd like to get Greek's closing statements.
I thought I already gave them.
Oh, well, apparently I'm the horse's ass tonight.
See?
Excuse me, guys. Yeah. Horrible host.
Yeah.
Grizz, you're supposed to stay on top of that.
We're all done with closing statements, Goose.
Yep. All right. Well, yeah. I'll tell you what, Carolyn, if you could hold that thought till next time, we'd love to have you back on the show in the future.
We'll see.
We'll see. All right.
We'll see.
That's all we can take. I do want to thank Daniel from Activist News, Carolyn, coming on, Sven. Thanks again for coming in late, even though you're dealing with all that shit going on. I hope everything's going well for you. Grizzly for helping me out, along with Will and Greek. Thanks for chiming in, everybody. It was a great show. Hope you all had a decent time, and we do hope to get you all back in. If you ever want to come on, feel free to chime in. It's an open door policy.
Yeah, sounds good.
Coming on, everybody.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And yeah, of course,
Yeah,
it was
all the guests who are coming on, by the way.
It was a fun time. We always like having a fun time on House of Faust. And to just reiterate, paganism and Christianity are two valuable cornerstones of white European culture. Until we get to the point where we need to start shedding and ideologies and honing our points, I think it's important to work together, embrace each other's similarities. Even if we are going to headbutt one another, it only encourages us to be better versions of ourselves that are more confident and concrete in our thoughts and opinions. So, I think you all made valid points this evening. I look forward to a rehashed version of this, maybe a 2.0. We'll have to get everybody back on in the future. And all I can say is this will only benefit us down the road. So yeah, thanks everybody for joining and tuning in tonight. It's a fun time. We'll see you guys probably in a week or so, maybe 2 weeks. So we'll see you guys next time.
Have a good night.
Have a
Good night, everybody. Good night.
Have a good one.